From the dreamy Sloane Peterson and Ferris Bueller's Day Off to the enchanting princess and legend, Mia Sara was the ultimate 80s crush. Everyone wanted to date her. After stepping away from Hollywood to focus on family and poetry, she's been living a quiet life in a centuries-old farmhouse with husband Brian Henson and their children. But now she's back in the spotlight, making a rare red carpet appearance and starring in The Life of Chuck, her first film in over a decade. Let's dive into her incredible journey from past paradise to present grace. Everyone wanted to date Phoebe Cates in the 80s. This is her lately. Phoebe Cates practically defined the dream girl of the 1980s. Her slow-motion bikini scene in Fast Times at Ridgemont High, 1982, wasn't just iconic, it was immortalized in pop culture history. But today, at 62, Cates has all but vanished from the Hollywood spotlight, and that's entirely by design. After marrying actor Kevin Kline in 1989, she made a deliberate retreat from acting to focus on family, famously turning down roles that required her to be away from their children for long periods. Her last major screen role was in 2001's The Anniversary Party, playing a part written specifically for her by close friend Jennifer Jason Leigh. Since then, Cates has channeled her creativity into retail. She opened Blue Tree, an eclectic boutique on Manhattan's Upper East Side in 2005, often described as a general store for the wealthy. And yes, she's often spotted there, hands-on and low-key, chatting with customers. She and Kline are still married as of 2025, a rarity in Hollywood longevity, and their son Owen has followed Dad into acting. Interestingly, despite persistent internet rumors, Cates has never expressed regret about leaving acting. She once said, "Acting was never my dream. It was just something I was lucky at." Her life today is grounded, private, and far removed from the teen idol hysteria of her youth. While many still remember her as the ultimate 80s crush, Phoebe Cates has gracefully built a quiet, artistic, and family-centered life, one that never needed a spotlight to shine. Everyone wanted to date Jennifer Beals in the 1980s. This is her lately. Jennifer Beals became a cultural phenomenon overnight with Flashdance in 1983, leaping into stardom with a sweatshirt hanging off one shoulder and a dance double behind the scenes. That film, budgeted under $10 million, grossed over $200 million globally, and Beals, still a Yale student at the time, skipped the whirlwind of Hollywood fame to finish her degree in American literature. Fast forward to 2025, and she's 61, still working, still graceful, and still firmly grounded in her own narrative. Beals never chased celebrity status. Instead, she built a decades-long career marked by steady, smart roles, most famously as Betty Porter in Showtime's The L Word, 2004 to 2009, and its reboot, Generation Q, 2019 to 2023. Off-screen, she's been vocal about human rights and environmental causes and holds a deep interest in photography, so much so that she once interned for Annie Leibovitz. She's also a longtime practitioner of Kung Fu and yoga, crediting both for her poise and clarity. Despite early headlines focused on her beauty and biracial heritage, her father was African American and her mother was Irish American, Beals used her platform to challenge industry standards and push for more complex roles for women. As of late 2025, she appeared in Law and Order, Organized Crime, and has a recurring role in the upcoming psychological thriller The Rule of Three. Still as private as ever, she lives in Los Angeles with her second husband, and yes, she can still do that iconic Flashdance chair scene, but says she'd rather teach you how to meditate than backbend in heels. Everyone wanted to date Elizabeth Shue in the 80s. This is her lately. Elizabeth Shue was the quintessential girl next door of the 80s, equal parts charm, grit, and all-American glow. Whether it was stealing scenes in The Karate Kid, 1984, babysitting chaos in Adventures in Babysitting, 1987, or going toe-to-toe with Tom Cruise in Cocktail, 1988, Shue was everywhere, and fans couldn't get enough. But unlike many of her peers, she kept reinventing herself. In 1995, she earned an Academy Award nomination for Leaving Las Vegas, playing a haunted sex worker with painful realism, far from her earlier teen roles. Fast forward to 2025, and Shue, now 61, is still sharp, still working, and still avoiding the spotlight. She recently popped up in The Boys on Amazon Prime as Madeline Stillwell, just long enough to shock audiences, and made an unexpected return to the Cobra Kai universe in Season 3, delighting die-hard fans. Behind the scenes, she's been married to director Davis Guggenheim since 1994, and the two have 3 children. One lesser-known detail? Shu returned to Harvard in the early 2000s and finally completed her degree in government, proving she finishes what she starts. And while she stepped back from lead roles, she's still choosing passion projects, most recently attached to an upcoming indie drama exploring memory loss and caregiving, inspired by her real-life experience with her late brother, William. Today, Shu lives quietly in Los Angeles, occasionally teaching her daughter tennis. She almost played professionally in the 80s. She may have left mainstream fame behind, but for those who grew up watching her, she's forever iconic. Everyone wanted to date Kelly LeBrock in the 80s. This is her lately. Kelly LeBrock didn't just light up the 80s, she detonated it. Her breakout in The Woman in Red, 1984, opposite Gene Wilder, was sultry and surreal. But it was Weird Science, 1985, that sealed her pop culture immortality. Playing Lisa, the dream woman literally created on a computer, LeBrock became every teenage boy's fantasy and every teen comedy's blueprint. By the early 90s, she stepped away from the limelight, choosing motherhood over movie sets. Now 65, LeBrock lives on a secluded ranch in Santa Ynez, California, raising livestock and healing horses, a far cry from Beverly Hills. Her decision to quit Hollywood was partly due to her painful divorce from Steven Seagal and her disillusionment with fame itself. Still, she's dipped back in her own terms, like in Celebrity Fit Club and 2023's indie thriller Charlie Boy, where she played a tormented matriarch, far from her fantasy girl image. Off-screen, LeBrock is an outspoken advocate for addiction recovery and mental health, having lost her brother to cancer and struggled with depression herself. She often speaks at women's shelters and runs outreach in rural communities, something she rarely publicizes. As of 2025, she's finalizing a memoir that promises unfiltered stories from her modeling days with Christian Dior to her turbulent Hollywood marriages. She's also working on a documentary about inner healing through animal therapy. Once the ultimate fantasy figure, LeBrock has evolved into something even rarer in Hollywood. Someone real, grounded, and unapologetically herself, proving true strength doesn't come from fantasy, but survival. Everyone wanted to date Rebecca De Mornay in the 80s. This is her lately. Rebecca De Mornay didn't just play the fantasy, she reinvented it. Her role as Lana in Risky Business, 1983, opposite Tom Cruise, wasn't just steamy, it became an 80s cinematic milestone. But behind the alluring screen presence was an actress with sharp instincts and serious range. While Hollywood often typecast her as the femme fatale, De Mornay broke out with chilling roles in The Hand That Rocks the Cradle, 1992, and The Trip to Bountiful, 1985, proving she was far more than a pretty face. Now 66, she's kept a low profile, but she never left the industry entirely. Most recently, she appeared in Lucifer and had a recurring role in Netflix's Jessica Jones as Dorothy Walker, a controlling, complex mother with layers only De Mornay could pull off. Few fans know she trained under Lee Strasberg at the Actors Studio, or that her biological father was Wally George, a combative conservative talk show host. Talk about family drama. De Mornay was also once engaged to Leonard Cohen, who reportedly wrote I'm Your Man with her in mind. As of 2025, she's working behind the scenes, developing a psychological thriller with a female-led production company focusing on age diversity in Hollywood. Yes, she's pushing for more roles for women over 50 that don't involve being someone's mom or victim. Living in Los Angeles, she avoids the red carpet, but remains fiercely respected among insiders. Rebecca De Mornay didn't fade. She evolved strategically, powerfully, and still completely in control. Everyone wanted to date Ally Sheedy in the 80s. This is her lately. Ally Sheedy was the heart of the Brat Pack era, not just because of The Breakfast Club, 1985, where she transformed from a silent goth outsider into a symbol of teen vulnerability, but because she embodied a rawness few actors of the era dared to show. Before that, she stole hearts as Matthew Broderick's partner in War Games, 1983, and held her own alongside Emilio Estevez and Rob Lowe in St. Elmo's Fire, 1985. But behind the fame, Sheedy faced real battles: addiction, burnout, and the exhausting pressure of being both iconic and misunderstood. She took a major step back from the limelight in the 90s, turning to theater and independent film, including her acclaimed performance in High Art, 1998, where she played a heroin-addicted photographer, earning her multiple Indie Awards and critical respect. Now 63, she's focused on teaching and mentoring the next generation of actors. Since 2021, she's been a professor at the City College of New York, where students say she's humble, funny, and wildly passionate about storytelling. She also had a short but memorable role in Single Drunk Female, 2022 to 2023, playing the lead's mother, a rare return to mainstream TV that reminded audiences she's still got that spark. Fun fact, Sheedy originally published a children's book at age 12 and was once mentored by legendary choreographer Twyla Tharp. Today, she lives a low-profile life in Manhattan and spends time with her son, Beckett, a trans activist and performer. Ally Sheedy never stopped being authentic. She just decided Hollywood didn't get to define her forever. Everyone wanted to date Daphne Zuniga in the 80s. This is her lately. Daphne Zuniga was effortlessly cool in the 80s, blending girl-next-door charm with deadpan delivery that made her unforgettable in cult hits like The Sure Thing, 1985, and Spaceballs, 1987, where she parodied a space princess with better comedic timing than half her male co-stars. She became a teen crush, not because she chased the spotlight, but because she seemed like the one actress who didn't need it to shine. What many fans forget is she also starred in Modern Girls, 1986, a neon-drenched ode to nightlife that cemented her as a downtown LA icon. But Zuniga didn't cling to the mainstream. She pivoted gracefully through the 90s with her role as Jo Reynolds in Melrose Place, a part she almost turned down, thinking it was too soapy, until producers promised Jo wouldn't be just another stereotype. Now 62, Zuniga balances acting with activism. She co-founded the Earth Communications Office and sits on the board of Riverkeeper, working on clean water and environmental policy reform. In 2022, she quietly returned to the screen in Lifetime's Deadly X Next Door, showing she still brings layered intensity when she chooses to. Off-camera, she directs a small theater in Los Angeles and has written essays about mindfulness and healing, inspired by years of therapy and meditation retreats. She married businessman David Maletzko in 2019 after nearly a decade together. As of 2025, Zuniga lives part-time in Ojai, California, gardening, mentoring young actors, and yes, still stealing every scene she walks into, even without trying. Everyone wanted to date Jami Gertz in the 80s. This is her lately. Jami Gertz lit up the 80s with a blend of vulnerability and spunk that made her unforgettable in cult classics like The Lost Boys, 1987, where she played Star, the vampire with a conscience, and Less Than Zero, 1987, opposite Robert Downey Jr. in a role that captured the decade's glamorized chaos. She was never the loudest Brat Pack member, but always one of the most magnetic. What fans may not know is that Gertz wasn't just a teen icon. She was also a sitcom regular on Square Pegs and later earned praise for her sharp comic timing in Still Standing. But here's where her story flips. By the 2000s, Gertz pivoted away from Hollywood and toward philanthropy, and not in a donate and disappear way. Married to billionaire investor Tony Ressler since 1989, she became one of the most active celebrity philanthropists, ranking in Forbes' list of top charitable donors. The couple owns a majority stake in the Atlanta Hawks, and Gertz often represents the team courtside, becoming a visible force in NBA ownership circles. Now 59, she occasionally returns to acting for fun, most recently lending her voice to a Netflix animated project in 2024, but her real focus is on arts education and cancer research. She serves on the board of the Melanoma Research Alliance and helped open a performing arts school in L.A. Gertz hasn't just aged gracefully, she's aged powerfully. The girl from 16 Candles might have stolen hearts in the 80s, but in 2025, she's quietly running empires. Everyone wanted to date Lea Thompson in the 80s. This is her lately. Lea Thompson was everywhere in the 80s. Marty McFly's mom in Back to the Future, 1985, the rock star turned duck lover in Howard the Duck, 1986, and the brainy dream girl in Some Kind of Wonderful, 1987. But what made her stand out wasn't just her looks. It was her ability to toggle between sci-fi, rom-coms, and cult weirdness without flinching. She worked nonstop through that decade, even doing most of her own stunts in Red Dawn, 1984, where she played a teen guerrilla fighter against Soviet invaders, a detail that feels hilariously on brand for Cold War Hollywood. But what's truly wild is how she reinvented herself. After the fame wave ebbed, Thompson shifted behind the camera, directing over 30 episodes of television, including The Goldbergs, Mom, and Star Trek Picard. She even directed her real-life daughters, Zoe and Madeline Deutsch, in the 2017 indie film, The Year of Spectacular Men. Now 64, Thompson is a powerhouse in indie film and streaming circles. In 2025, she's producing a limited series about 1980s women directors who were sidelined by studios, one of her longtime passion projects. Off-screen, she's known for her quick wit on social media and activism for women in film. Married to director Howard Deutsch since 1989, she splits her time between Los Angeles and New Mexico, where she paints, yes, oils, and hikes. Lea Thompson didn't fade. She evolved into one of the most quietly influential women in Hollywood, still defying the genre box they tried to keep her in. Everyone wanted to date Jennifer Grey in the 80s. This is her lately. Jennifer Grey wasn't just Baby in Dirty Dancing, 1987. She was a full-blown cultural reset. That leap off the stage with Patrick Swayze launched her into icon status and became one of the most replayed movie scenes in VHS history. But before the Mambo, she was already stealing scenes as Ferris Bueller's annoyed sister in Ferris Bueller's Day Off, 1986, holding her own in a John Hughes classic. Yet just as her fame peaked, Grey made a fateful decision, a rhinoplasty that drastically altered her appearance and, as she later admitted, nearly erased her Hollywood identity. "I went in the operating room a celebrity and came out anonymous," she once said. But Grey didn't disappear. She regrouped. In 2010, she won Dancing with the Stars, proving she still had the moves, and in 2022, she released her deeply honest memoir, Out of the Corner, which tackled everything from fame whiplash to surviving a serious car accident with then-boyfriend Matthew Broderick. Now 65, Grey is developing a Dirty Dancing sequel, not as a nostalgia grab, but as a modern story that honors the original's rebellious spirit. She's also active in women's health advocacy and speaks candidly about aging in an industry still obsessed with youth. As of 2025, she lives in Los Angeles, continues acting in indie projects, and maintains close ties with dance organizations across the country. Jennifer Grey didn't fade. She pivoted, danced through the chaos, and emerged as one of the most self-aware voices of her generation. Everyone wanted to date Molly Ringwald in the 80s. This is her lately. Molly Ringwald was the undisputed face of teenage angst in the 1980s. From 16 Candles, 1984, to The Breakfast Club, 1985, to Pretty in Pink, 1986. She didn't just play the misunderstood teen, she defined it. With her expressive eyes, offbeat charm, and undeniable chemistry with every brooding co-star, Ringwald became John Hughes's muse and a Gen X icon. But by the early 90s, she consciously stepped away from Hollywood's fast lane, turning down Pretty Woman and Ghost in favor of more personal international projects, including a surprising but successful pivot to French cinema. As of 2025, the now 57-year-old actress, author, and jazz singer wears many hats. She had a memorable run on Riverdale as Archie's mom, wrote for The New Yorker, and released her second jazz album in 2023. Yes, she can sing in both English and French. Off-screen, she's a vocal critic of industry sexism and an advocate for teen mental health, drawing from both her early fame and the pressures that came with it. Ringwald is also raising 3 children with writer Panio Giannopoulos and splits her time between New York and Paris. In a clever twist, She recently completed filming a new Netflix series where she plays the therapist to a group of chaotic teenagers, not unlike the characters she once portrayed. Molly Ringwald didn't just grow up, she leveled up, proving that the original teen queen of the 80s has become one of Hollywood's most multi-dimensional voices. Everyone wanted to date Lonnie Anderson in the 80s. This is her lately. Lonnie Anderson was the blonde bombshell who flipped every stereotype on its head. As Jennifer Marlowe on WKRP in Cincinnati, 1978 to 1982, she played the glamorous receptionist with an IQ that could run laps around her colleagues, and fans loved her for it. With a mix of Marilyn Monroe appeal and razor-sharp comedic timing, she became one of the most desired women on television during the late 70s and throughout the 80s. But Anderson wasn't just a pretty face in a sitcom. She turned her fame into power moves. By 1985, she was commanding one of the highest salaries in TV and had a hand in developing her own roles, something rare for actresses at the time. Now 79 as of 2025, Anderson lives a remarkably private life, though she occasionally appears at charity events and television retrospectives. She hasn't acted much in recent years, but in 2023, she reunited with surviving WKRP cast members for a documentary about women in early sitcoms. She's also been outspoken about lung disease awareness, inspired by her parents' struggle with COPD. Fun trivia? Anderson once beat out 500 actresses for the WKRP role, while wearing a borrowed dress and only $10 in her wallet. She now splits her time between Los Angeles and Minnesota with her fourth husband, musician Bob Flick of the Brothers Four. Lonnie Anderson may no longer be the poster on every dorm room wall, but in 2025, she's a symbol of how beauty and brains never go out of style. Everyone wanted to date Olivia Hussey in the 80s. This is her lately. Olivia Hussey had already cemented her place in cinematic history long before the 80s began. Her portrayal of Juliet in Franco Zeffirelli's Romeo and Juliet, 1968, wasn't just award-winning, it became the definitive version for generations. But in the 1980s, Hussey shifted from Shakespearean ingenue to cult film queen, with roles in horror classics like Black Christmas, 1974, gaining a fresh wave of appreciation through cable reruns and midnight screenings. What fans may not know is that she turned down The Exorcist due to its dark subject matter, a decision she later said she didn't regret. Now 74 as of 2025, Hussey leads a quiet, deeply spiritual life in Los Angeles with her third husband, musician David Glenn Eisley. She's also the mother of actress India Eisley, the secret life of the American teenager, with whom she shares a close bond. In 2018, she published her memoir, The Girl on the Balcony, a brutally honest look at fame, abuse, and survival in Hollywood. As of this year, she's working on adapting it into a limited series, serving as both producer and narrator. A practicing Buddhist since the 90s, Hussey now spends much of her time in meditation retreats and animal welfare causes. She's rescued dozens of stray dogs over the years. While many remember her as the ethereal Juliet or the haunting Scream Queen, today Olivia Hussey is a survivor, a mother, and a creative force who finally owns her story on her own terms. Everyone wanted to date Tatum O'Neal in the 80s. This is her lately. Tatum O'Neal was Hollywood royalty before she hit puberty. At just 10 years old, she became the youngest Oscar winner in history for Paper Moon, 1973, acting opposite her real-life father, Ryan O'Neal. By the 1980s, she'd shed the child star label and become a full-fledged tabloid fascination, thanks to roles in Little Darlings, 1980, high-profile romances, including a teenage fling with Michael Jackson, and a rocky relationship with Fame. But her biggest battle wasn't on screen. It was behind the scenes. Throughout the 90s and 2000s, O'Neal publicly struggled with substance abuse and tumultuous family dynamics, often making headlines for all the wrong reasons. Yet in true survival fashion, she kept pushing forward. Now 61, as of 2025, O'Neal is in long-term recovery and slowly rebuilding her creative life. In 2021, she began hosting intimate podcast-style interviews with other former child stars, tackling the psychological toll of early fame. She's also working on a follow-up to her memoir, A Paper Life, focusing on forgiveness and aging in Hollywood. Despite suffering a major stroke in 2020, which temporarily affected her speech, she's made remarkable progress, crediting art therapy and her 3 children, including actor Kevin McEnroe, for grounding her. She's even returned to the stage in LA theater productions, drawing strong reviews for her raw performances. Today, O'Neill lives quietly in Southern California and is more candid than ever. Her journey hasn't been polished, but it's been fiercely real. In a town that chews up child stars, Tatum is still standing and finally on her own terms. Everyone wanted to date Apollonia Kotero in the 80s. This is her lately. Apollonia Kotero didn't just arrive in the 80s, she exploded. When Prince cast her in Purple Rain, 1984, as the sultry, ambitious Apollonia, she became an instant pop culture firestorm. That lake-jumping scene? Cinematic legend. Replacing Vanity in both the film and the girl group Apollonia 6, she was suddenly orbiting one of the most iconic musicians in history. But the spotlight wasn't always kind. After the massive success of Purple Rain, her solo career stalled due to industry politics and creative control battles, especially with Warner Brothers refusing to release her shelved debut album. Still, Apollonia kept performing, appeared in cult TV shows like Falcon Crest, and quietly stayed active in the Latin entertainment world. As of 2025, now 65, she's embraced a more spiritual, artistic lifestyle. She runs Kotero Entertainment, developing music and media projects spotlighting Latina voices, and she recently collaborated on a Purple Rain anniversary docuseries with the Prince estate. In 2023, she surprised fans by releasing Stay Golden, her first new single in decades, dedicated to Prince, whom she still refers to as my eternal creative twin. Offstage, she's active in animal rescue and mentors young women navigating the industry. Despite intense tabloid interest during her peak, Apollonia has never exploited her past. She guards it like a sacred mixtape. And yes, she still hears When Doves Cry at least once a week in public. From pop fantasy to fiercely independent artist, Apollonia Kotero is living proof that icons don't fade, they evolve with rhythm. Everyone wanted to date Jennifer Tilly in the 80s. This is her lately. Jennifer Tilly was the kind of actress who made quirky irresistible. With that unmistakable voice, equal parts breathy and sly, she began turning heads in the late 80s, notably in The Fabulous Baker Boys, 1989, where even brief screen time left a lasting impression. But her real breakout came in the 90s with Bound, 1996, a noir thriller that became a cult classic and LGBTQ milestone. Yet even in the 80s, she was already a force, earning stage cred with her theater work and pulling off what few could, being both comedic and dangerously seductive. Now 66 as of 2025, Tilly is enjoying one of the most unexpected second acts in Hollywood. She's still voicing Tiffany Valentine in the Chucky franchise, now a successful TV series, and continues to poke fun at herself with perfect comedic timing. But here's the nerdy twist. She's also a professional poker player. Tilly won a World Series of Poker's ladies event in 2005 and has racked up over $1 million in tournament winnings. She calls poker her performance art and even briefly retired from acting to focus on it. As of 2025, she's juggling both worlds, filming Chucky Season 4 while competing in international poker circuits. Still dating poker legend Phil Locke, she splits her time between Los Angeles and Las Vegas. Jennifer Tilly didn't just stay relevant. She evolved into a genre-bending, voice-recognizable, poker-playing icon who never once stopped being her gloriously eccentric self. And somehow, she's still winning, on screen and at the table. Everyone wanted to date Victoria Principal in the 80s. This is her lately. Victoria Principal wasn't just a soap opera star in the 80s. She was Dallas royalty. As Pamela Barnes Ewing, she was the moral heartbeat of one of TV's most dysfunctional families, tangled in oil feuds, family betrayal, and the most iconic shower scene in television history. Her exit from Dallas in 1987 was as dramatic off-screen as it was on, with Principal turning down a multi-million-dollar contract because, in her words, The writing was on the wall creatively. But here's where it gets interesting. She pivoted, big time. By the 90s, she became a self-made beauty mogul. Her skincare line, Principal Secret, launched in 1991 and raked in hundreds of millions before she stepped away in 2019 to focus on philanthropy and environmental activism. Now 75 as of 2025, she lives a fiercely private life in Malibu, rarely appearing in public but still passionately running the Victoria Principal Foundation for Thoughtful Existence, which supports ocean preservation, animal welfare, and women's health care. She also breeds and rehabilitates rescue horses on her sprawling ranch. Notoriously press-shy, she turned down countless reboot offers, including the Dallas revival, preferring instead to let her legacy stand untouched. Fun fact, she was once a finalist to play Kelly Garrett in Charlie's Angels, but turned it down to focus on film. Victoria Principal might have walked away from the camera, but she never lost her power. In 2025, she's not just remembered, she's revered for doing Hollywood her way and leaving behind more than just perfect skin. Everyone wanted to date Connie Sellecca in the 80s. This is her lately. Connie Sellecca ruled 80s television with that rare mix of elegance and approachability that made everyone, from network execs to college dorm rooms, fall a little bit in love. Best known for her roles in The Greatest American Hero, 1981 to 1983, and later as Christine Francis in Hotel, 1983 to 1988, Sellecca played characters who were strong, stylish, and always 3 steps ahead. Off-screen, she was just as savvy. Fun trivia, she turned down a spot on Dallas to star in Hotel, a move that paid off big with consistent ratings and global syndication. But while many of her peers chased film roles, Sellecca leaned into television, and later, business. Now 70 as of 2025, she's stepped away from acting, but not from influence. For over a decade, she's co-managed the successful health and wellness company with her husband, Entertainment Tonight host John Tesh. Together, they've marketed brain health supplements and motivational media to a loyal Boomer and Gen X fan base. She also hosted Intelligence for Your Life, a radio-TV hybrid focused on practical living advice, where her voice became a regular presence in millions of households. Her son, Gib Gerard, now hosts the show's newer segments, continuing the family legacy. Based in California, she's active in Christian outreach programs and remains an advocate for Alzheimer's awareness, a cause close to her heart. Connie Sellecca didn't just age gracefully, she rewrote what graceful means in Hollywood. Brains, business, and a quiet confidence that never went out of fashion. Everyone wanted to date Priscilla Presley in the 80s. This is her lately. Priscilla Presley had already lived a life more dramatic than most biopics by the time the 1980s rolled around. But that decade was her reinvention era. No longer just Elvis's ex, she carved out her own Hollywood path, first gaining attention as Jenna Wade on Dallas, 1983 to 1988, then surprising everyone with her comedic chops in The Naked Gun trilogy opposite Leslie Nielsen. Her timing was impeccable, both on screen and off. She'd already co-founded Elvis Presley Enterprises in the late 70s, and by the mid-80s, she turned Graceland into one of the most profitable tourist attractions in the country, proving her business instincts were just as sharp as her screen presence. Now 80 as of 2025, Priscilla remains deeply active in preserving Elvis's legacy, but she's also made headlines for her candid 2023 legal battle to protect granddaughter Riley Keogh's control over Lisa Marie Presley's estate, an emotional chapter that ultimately ended in reconciliation. In 2022, she was portrayed by Kaylee Spaney in Sofia Coppola's Priscilla, a film based on her 1985 memoir, Elvis and Me, which brought her back into cultural conversation with a younger generation. She's also returned to producing, developing a limited series about her life before Elvis, focusing on her upbringing in West Germany and early independence. Off-screen, she remains a style icon and still rides horses at her Los Angeles estate. Priscilla Presley isn't just a footnote in Elvis history. She's a survivor, a mogul, and a woman who wrote her second act in bold, permanent ink. Everyone wanted to date Barbara Bach in the 80s. This is her lately. Barbara Bach wasn't just a Bond girl, she was the Bond girl of the late 70s and early 80s. As Major Anya Amasova in The Spy Who Loved Me, 1977, she played a Russian agent who matched 007 in wit, weaponry, and screen presence, making her one of the first Bond women to truly go toe-to-toe with the franchise's legendary lead. But by the 1980s, Bach had already begun distancing herself from acting, having grown disillusioned with Hollywood's limited roles for women and the constant pressure to be glamorous. Still, she remained in the spotlight, largely thanks to her marriage to Beatles drummer Ringo Starr in 1981, a relationship that has impressively endured for over 4 decades. Now 78 as of 2025, Barbara lives a private but purposeful life, far removed from red carpets and film sets. She co-founded the self-help addiction recovery program, SHARP, with Ringo in the late 90s, focusing on holistic rehabilitation and mental health advocacy, causes close to both of their hearts. The couple splits their time between their homes in Los Angeles and Monte Carlo and are regular donors to animal welfare and environmental charities. Fun trivia: Bach holds a degree in psychology and is fluent in Italian, having started her modeling career in Rome. She's also a skilled painter, quietly exhibiting her work under a pseudonym. Barbara Bach never chased fame. She let it find her, then walked away with grace. In 2025, she's not remembered as just a Bond girl, but as a woman who redefined what power looked like in silence. Everyone wanted to date Catherine Bach in the 80s. This is her lately. Catherine Bach didn't just play Daisy Duke. She became Daisy Duke. When the Dukes of Hazzard hit TV screens in 1979, it wasn't just the car chases or country antics that stole the show. It was Bach's iconic denim shorts, tied-off blouses, and confident swagger that launched a fashion phenomenon. So much so that Daisy Dukes became a permanent part of pop culture vocabulary. But she wasn't just eye candy. Producers originally envisioned a Dolly Parton type until Bach came in and rewrote the definition of Southern sash. She even designed many of her own costumes and posed for a poster that reportedly outsold Farrah Fawcett's by 1981. Off-screen, she turned her fame into smart business moves, licensing her name on a successful line of jeans and fragrances. Now 71 as of 2025, Bach is living a quieter life, but she hasn't vanished. She appeared in The Young and the Restless for several seasons and remains active at fan conventions, often advocating for cancer awareness in honor of her late husband, entertainment lawyer Peter Lopez. In recent years, she's also collaborated on a children's book inspired by her ranch upbringing and continues to champion American military families through nonprofit work. Her daughters, Sophia and Laura, are both working in entertainment, and Bach has proudly shifted into the mentor role she never had. In 2025, she's still rocking boots, but now with wisdom and purpose. Catherine Bach didn't ride off into the sunset. She built her own road and kept on driving. Everyone wanted to date Catherine Mary Stewart in the 80s. This is her lately. Catherine Mary Stewart quietly became an 80s sci-fi and cult film queen without ever trying too hard. She first caught eyes as the futuristic rebel Maggie in The Last Starfighter, 1984, then cemented her status with Night of the Comet, 1984, where she played a valley girl with a machine gun in a post-apocalyptic L.A., a role that's still quoted at Comic-Cons. But she wasn't boxed into genre flicks. Stewart also starred in Weekend at Bernie's, 1989, balancing slapstick absurdity with grounded charm. No easy feat when acting alongside a corpse. Yet despite her growing fame, Stewart took a surprising path. She stepped back from Hollywood in the 90s to focus on raising her 2 children, turning down major roles to prioritize family life. Now 65 as of 2025, she's back in the indie scene and horror convention circuit, engaging with fans who now introduce her films to their kids. In 2023, she starred in Ask Me to Dance, directed by Tom Malloy, and she's currently developing a limited web series that revisits her Night of the Comet character decades later, because yes, she still fits in the jumpsuit. She also teaches acting workshops and often speaks on the challenges of sustaining longevity in an industry built on youth. Based in New York, She maintains close ties with fellow 80s stars and remains deeply grateful for her cult following. Catherine Mary Stewart didn't chase the fame machine. She rebooted on her own terms, and now she's still glowing in her own quiet, comet-bright orbit. Everyone wanted to date Mariel Hemingway in the 80s. This is her lately. Mariel Hemingway's rise in the 1980s was the kind of fame that came with both prestige and controversy. She earned an Oscar nomination at just 18 for Manhattan, 1979, where she played a high schooler romantically involved with Woody Allen's character, an age gap plotline that's since been reevaluated through a very different lens. But Hemingway didn't coast on that momentum. She broke from ingenue roles with Personal Best, 1982, a daring film about bisexuality and women's athletics that became a touchstone in queer cinema. She was fearless before it was fashionable. By the late 80s, though, Hollywood had trouble figuring out what to do with her. Instead of fading out, Hemingway pivoted. Now 63 as of 2025, she's more active than ever, but in new arenas. A longtime advocate for mental health, she speaks openly about her family's deep history of depression and suicide, including the legacy of her grandfather, Ernest Hemingway. Her best-selling memoir, Out Came the Sun, 2015, helped destigmatize emotional trauma, and in 2023, she launched a wellness podcast focused on mindfulness, nature therapy, and neuroplasticity. She lives off-grid in the mountains of Idaho, practices daily cold plunges, and grows her own food. Yes, she's that level of grounded. She occasionally returns to acting, most recently in an indie drama about generational grief, but says she prefers the woods to the red carpet. Mariel Hemingway was once Hollywood's golden girl. In 2025, she's something better, real, reflective, and remarkably ahead of her time. Everyone wanted to date Mary Steenburgen in the 80s. This is her lately. Mary Steenburgen had the kind of 80s appeal that wasn't loud or flashy. It was magnetic in a deeply grounded way. After winning an Academy Award for Melvin and Howard, 1980, she quickly became a go-to for roles that mixed warmth, wisdom, and quiet strength. From playing a time-traveling poet's love interest in Time After Time, 1979, to the unforgettable Clara in Back to the Future Part 3, 1990, Steenburgen brought authenticity to every genre she touched. And yes, those were her real piano skills in that train scene. More on that in a second. What many didn't realize then is that she'd later reinvent herself entirely. Now 72 as of 2025, she's not only acting, most recently in Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist and Netflix's Happiness for Beginners, but also thriving as a songwriter. After a minor brain surgery in 2007, she woke up with music playing in her head. No joke, her brain literally shifted gears. Since then, she's co-written over 50 songs, including the Oscar shortlisted Glasgow, No Place Like Home, from Wild Rose, 2018. She's also still happily married to actor Ted Danson, an enduring Hollywood love story in a town short on those. Off-screen, she advocates for environmental causes and arts education, and she's working on a memoir reflecting on her two lives, pre- and post-music. In a career that's blended comedy, drama, time travel, and now songwriting, Mary Steenburgen has quietly become one of the most surprising and inspiring multi-hyphenates working today. Everyone wanted to date Susan Anton in the 80s. This is her lately. Susan Anton was the towering blonde bombshell of the late 70s and early 80s, literally and figuratively. At 5 feet 11 inches, with charisma that matched her height, she skyrocketed to fame through Muriel's cigar commercials. You can't top a Muriel, and parlayed that into TV variety shows, Vegas stages, and a short but headline-grabbing romance with Dudley Moore that the tabloids couldn't resist, especially given their foot-and-a-half height difference. But Anton wasn't just a pretty face on magazine covers. She had legit vocal chops, earning a Golden Globe nomination for Golden Girl, 1979, and starring in Broadway's The Will Rogers Follies. She shared billing with big names like Kenny Rogers and Fred Travalena in major Las Vegas productions, back when headlining Vegas actually meant something. Fast forward to 2025, Anton, now 73, lives quietly in Las Vegas with her longtime husband, actor Jeff Lester. She stepped back from the spotlight after the early 2000s, but not from performing entirely. In recent years, she's appeared in benefit concerts and church-based arts programs, mentoring young performers in vocal technique and stage presence. She's also a regular presence in wellness circles, advocating for clean eating and age-positive beauty. And fun fact, she's a certified yoga instructor and swears by cold-pressed green juice. While she's long-distanced herself from the glitzy Hollywood scene, Susan Anton remains a beloved icon of that golden era when a commercial jingle could launch a career and a single smile could stop Vegas traffic. And yes, she still owns a room. Everyone wanted to date Joanna Kerns in the 80s. This is her lately. Joanna Kerns became America's TV mom long before that was a meme. As Maggie Seaver on Growing Pains, 1985 to 1992, she was the career-driven, compassionate, and surprisingly sarcastic mother that helped redefine what sitcom moms could be: smart, stylish, and still human. But Kerns didn't start there. Before Growing Pains, she guest starred in nearly every major 80s TV show, from Chips to The A-Team, and even screen-tested for the role of Princess Leia. Really, though she didn't get the galaxy far, far away, she landed something arguably more enduring: primetime comfort TV legend. Yet her real power move came after the show slowed. By the late 90s, she transitioned into directing, quietly, confidently, and consistently. Now 71 as of 2025, Kerns has built one of the most impressive directing resumes in TV, with credits on This Is Us, Grey's Anatomy, ER, Pretty Little Liars, and dozens more. She's also a strong advocate for mental health awareness and was appointed to the California Commission on the Status of Women. Offset, Kerns is a mother, a breast cancer awareness spokesperson, and a quiet force behind the scenes in Hollywood's push for more female directors. Still based in Southern California, she mentors up-and-coming female filmmakers and occasionally pops into Growing Pains reunions, always gracious and witty. Joanna Kerns didn't cling to fame. She flipped the script, got behind the camera, and made sure the next generation of women could call the shots, too. Everyone wanted to date Joyce DeWitt in the 80s. This is her lately. Joyce DeWitt was the level-headed brunette America fell in love with during her 8-year run as Janet Wood on Three's Company, 1977 to 1984. While Suzanne Summers' Chrissy often got the punchlines and John Ritter's Jack got the pratfalls, it was DeWitt's timing, warmth, and raised eyebrow reactions that quietly held the chaos together. Behind the scenes, she trained seriously, earning a master's degree from UCLA's prestigious acting program, and often directed stage plays between filming seasons. But when Three's Company ended, DeWitt made a rare Hollywood move. She walked away. For over a decade, she virtually disappeared from television, choosing stage work, travel, and a life out of the spotlight over typecasting. Now 75 as of 2025, DeWitt remains based in California and still acts, but on her own terms. She's appeared in regional theater productions across the country and has become a passionate advocate for homelessness awareness, even participating in public service campaigns long before it was trendy. In 2012, she reunited with Suzanne Summers after 3 decades of estrangement, bringing closure to one of TV's most famous behind-the-scenes feuds. Fun fact, DeWitt also once turned down the chance to replace her own role in the show's spin-off, Three's a Crowd, preferring to preserve Janet's ending. These days, she makes selective appearances at fan conventions, supports youth arts education, and continues to live a life as grounded as the character that made her famous. Joyce DeWitt may have been the smart roommate, but in 2025, she's the one who played the long game and won. Everyone wanted to date Shelley Long in the 80s. This is her lately. Shelley Long owned the 80s with a brand of comic timing that was razor-sharp and effortlessly charming. As Diane Chambers on Cheers, 1982 to 1987, she played the intellectual foil to Sam Malone's ex-jock bravado, turning romantic tension into high art and earning 5 Emmy nominations and 1 win in the process. Long didn't just make Diane iconic. She helped Cheers become the gold standard for sitcoms. What many fans don't know is that she also co-wrote episodes and had an early background in improv with Chicago's famed Second City. After leaving Cheers at its peak, a decision still debated by TV historians, she headlined cult comedies like Troop Beverly Hills, 1989, which bombed at release, but later became a millennial sleepover classic. Now 75 as of 2025, Shelley Long lives a quiet life in Los Angeles, far from the tabloid circuit. While she hasn't acted frequently in recent years, she made a surprise appearance in Modern Family as Dee Dee Pritchett, delivering some of the show's sharpest singers. She's also spent time mentoring young writers and has quietly supported women-led theater companies. In 2024, a documentary retrospective about Cheers included Long's rare on-camera reflections, where she admitted, with a wink, that Diane's vocabulary probably sent more people to dictionaries than college professors. Fun fact, she once turned down a role in Working Girl that later went to Sigourney Weaver. Shelley Long may have stepped out of the spotlight, but her influence on television comedy still echoes in every smart, funny female lead that followed. Everyone wanted to date Jane Seymour in the 80s. This is her lately. Jane Seymour was the definition of elegance and allure in the 1980s, blending British sophistication with Hollywood magnetism. After captivating audiences as Solitaire in the Bond film Live and Let Die, 1973, she became a household name in the 80s thanks to roles in Somewhere in Time, 1980, opposite Christopher Reeve, a romantic fantasy that developed a cult following and still inspires teary rewatches. But Seymour wasn't just eye candy. She tackled intense dramas like East of Eden, 1981, and The Scarlet Pimpernel, 1982, proving she had serious acting range. She also famously balanced all of this while raising a family, later becoming a spokesperson for motherhood, aging, and reinvention. Now 74 as of 2025, Seymour remains impressively active. She recently starred in the Irish comedy Harry Wilde, where she plays a retired English professor turned amateur sleuth, basically if Miss Marple had sass and better clothes. Off-screen, she's just as busy. Seymour runs the Open Hearts Foundation, supporting underserved communities and disaster relief, and continues to paint professionally. Her work has been exhibited in galleries from LA to London. She also launched a lifestyle brand and still models, gracing covers well into her 70s. Fun side note, she did Dancing with the Stars at age 56 and outlasted half the cast. Jane Seymour's secret isn't just timeless beauty. It's an unmatched work ethic, a dash of royalty, and the ability to master both Shakespeare and skincare in one breath. In 2025, she's still redefining grace. Everyone wanted to date Mary Lou Henner in the 80s. This is her lately. Mary Lou Henner was the fiery redhead with the razor-sharp wit who lit up Taxi, 1978 to 1983, as Elaine Nardo, the only woman in a garage full of cab-driving chaos. But she wasn't just there for balance. Henner stole scenes with comedic grace, intellect, and that unforgettable smile. She quickly became one of the most desirable and recognizable women of the 80s, known not only for her acting, but also for her rare ability to switch between sitcoms, Broadway, Chicago, Grease, and feature films like Johnny Dangerously and L.A. Story. Now 73 as of 2025, Henner remains in a category of her own. She's one of only a handful of people documented to have highly superior autobiographical memory, HSAM. She can recall nearly every day of her life in vivid detail, down to what she wore and what she ate. She's written 9 books on health, memory, and lifestyle, and is a frequent guest expert on shows like Today and Dr. Oz. Recently, she's been touring the country with her one-woman stage show, Mary Lou 360, blending storytelling, song, and memory techniques. Yes, she sings, too. She also continues to act, often appearing in Hallmark mysteries and guest starring in crime procedurals. Off-screen, she advocates for cancer prevention after losing her parents at a young age, and she's still married to Michael Brown, a former college flame she reconnected with after decades, rom-com style. Mary Lou Henner hasn't just stayed relevant, she's turned memory itself into a superpower. Everyone wanted to date Stephanie Powers in the 80s. This is her lately. Stephanie Powers was peak elegance in the 80s, the kind of woman who could outrun danger in heels and deliver a one-liner with champagne-level charm. As Jennifer Hart on Heart to Heart, 1979 to 1984, she played one half of the globe-trotting, crime-solving power couple opposite Robert Wagner, solving murders in Paris one week and sipping martinis in Monaco the next. The chemistry wasn't just for show. Powers and Wagner remained close friends for decades. But Powers wasn't new to the screen. She'd already worked with legends like John Wayne and Tallulah Bankhead and starred in cult films like Die, Die, My Darling, 1965. Behind the glamour, though, she was deeply intellectual and fiercely independent. Now 82 as of 2025, Powers still travels the world, but these days it's usually for conservation work. She co-founded the William Holden Wildlife Foundation in Kenya after the death of her longtime partner, actor William Holden, and she remains hands-on with education and wildlife rescue efforts to this day. She also tours internationally with her one-woman show, Heart and Soul, blending storytelling and cabaret performance. Yes, she sings too. Her 2011 memoir, One from the Heart, offered a deeply personal look at fame, grief, and reinvention. Fluent in multiple languages, a licensed pilot, and a conservationist long before it was trending, Powers is still rewriting what it means to age in Hollywood. She didn't just play a jet-setting icon, she became one. And in 2025, Stephanie Powers is still very much living the adventure. Everyone wanted to date Linda Gray in the 80s. This is her lately. Linda Gray was the sultry heartbeat of Dallas, the primetime soap that turned oil, betrayal, and shoulder pads into appointment television. As Sue Ellen Ewing, she portrayed one of TV's most complicated women, an alcoholic socialite trapped in a toxic marriage to J.R. Ewing, played by Larry Hagman. But Gray didn't just survive the role. She elevated it, transforming Sue Ellen from a background character into a dramatic powerhouse. She earned an Emmy nod in 1981 and helped Dallas dominate ratings through the entire decade. And fun fact, before becoming an actress, she was the leg double for Anne Bancroft in The Graduate, 1967. Now 84 as of 2025, Gray remains stunningly active and just as captivating. She continues to appear on stage internationally and in TV guest roles, most recently in the British drama Hollyoaks, proving she's still got it on both sides of the Atlantic. She's also a best-selling author. Her memoir, The Road to Happiness is Always Under Construction, is part autobiography, part self-help, and all heart. A longtime advocate for mental health and women's empowerment, she frequently speaks at global wellness events. Gray also runs acting workshops and collaborates with young female writers and directors, encouraging them to create roles with complexity, like the one she once fought to make her own. In 2025, Linda Gray isn't just remembered for Sue Ellen, she's celebrated for turning a soap opera archetype into a feminist icon and for continuing to inspire on and off screen. Everyone wanted to date Mia Sara in the 80s. This is her lately. Mia Sara was the dream girl of the mid-1980s, mysterious, ethereal, and the kind of beautiful that felt almost otherworldly. She starred as Sloane Peterson in Ferris Bueller's Day Off, 1986, playing the effortlessly cool girlfriend every teenager wanted to date and every parent weirdly approved of. That same year, she co-starred in Legend alongside a then-unknown Tom Cruise and Tim Curry in full demonic prosthetics, solidifying her as the go-to for fantasy and teen classics. But unlike many of her contemporaries, Sara quietly stepped back from the industry in the early 2000s, trading red carpets for writing desks. Now 57 as of 2025, Mia Sara lives a fiercely private, creatively rich life in Los Angeles. She's married to acclaimed puppeteer and Muppets royalty Brian Henson, son of Jim Henson, and together they've built a quiet artistic world far from the tabloids. While she hasn't acted on screen since the early 2010s, she's found her voice in poetry and prose, publishing reflective, darkly humorous essays about aging, womanhood, and the quiet reinvention of a former icon. She's also known to consult on fantasy screenplays behind the scenes. She even helped workshop a reboot concept for Legend, though she passed on appearing in it. Though she no longer seeks the spotlight, Sarah remains beloved by fans who grew up with her on VHS, and in 2025, she's become what many of her characters hinted at: elusive, elegant, and completely in control of her story. Thanks for watching Past Paradise, where Hollywood legends come home. If you enjoyed today's look into the topic, everyone wanted to date her in the 80s, this is her lately, then don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell. Got a star or story you want next? Drop it in the comments. Until then, keep the nostalgia alive, only on Past Paradise.